of Utah for 2.5 years. She's an attorney who has practiced law in Utah for over 20 years and has been passionate about human rights. Welcome to the stage, Karen McCreary.
Thank you. Hey, it's great to be here. I like Archie's line, somos picosos. That's wonderful. We're the spice, we're the energy, we're the necessary aspect of democracy, the strength of it. We've got to grow our numbers and stand strong about what matters for our country and for all humanity. In the past several months, we've all seen these numerous disturbing secret memos released pursuant to the ACLU's Freedom of Information Act requests. These detailed, sadistic interrogation methods the Bush administration authorized the CIA to use on detainees, as well as memos written by lawyers, which were an embarrassment to read as a lawyer and as an American, supposedly crafted to justifying these violations of our Constitution and national and international laws. These memos provide shocking confirmation of high-level involvement in the Bush administration, the Bush torture program, and they follow on the heels of over 100,000 pages of documents that have been produced since the ACLU first went to court in 2003 to seek disclosure so that we would know what was going on in our name pertaining to torture. Those documents are posted on the ACLU.org website so that the American public can understand the nature of the brutalizing, disturbing, widespread nature of the crimes committed under our flag and in our name as Americans, both on our shores and around the world. It's appalling to see how far our nation has strayed from our commitment to human rights. To restore our values, we must demand accountability from those responsible. Yeah. Thanks. The last thing America can do now is to adopt, oh well, let's just forget it, let bygones be bygones, approach to these despicable and indefensible activities. In America, no one is above the law. And when crimes have been committed, our legal system demands accountability. It took 5 years for the ACLU to force these memos out into the open, and we're still working on that for more and for the photographs. No matter how long it takes, we're going to keep pushing, all of us here together, until those responsible for these horrible, heinous acts are held accountable. I like these signs, as Archie said. Restore our humanity. Indict and convict those who ordered torture. The America I believe in does not torture people. Amen to that. In order to restore the rule of law and the credibility of the American justice system, there must be a thorough investigation of those who ordered and authorized the Bush administration's torture policies. Torture is a crime. And the fact that crimes were committed during the interrogations of detainees can no longer be doubted, debated, or minimalized. Despite the voluminous evidence that senior Bush administration and officials authorized torture, the only people who have been held accountable for this maltreatment of prisoners are low-ranking soldiers. President Obama has said that no one is above the law. Our Attorney General, Eric Holder, has said the Department of Justice will follow the facts where they lead. It's time to hold them to their word. So what are we talking about with accountability? What's that mean? All three branches of government must be involved if we are to achieve this accountability. The Attorney General should appoint an independent prosecutor to investigate issues of criminal responsibility, free of political or other bias. Congress should form a select committee to investigate the failed policies of the Bush administration, including the origins of the torture policy. Restoring government transparency is a critical part of accountability. We must, as a nation, continue to broaden our accountability, to have our courts release critical documents under the Freedom of Information Act, and allow lawsuits to go ahead which challenge government policies. For the ACLU, accountability includes these 4 components: comprehensive disclosure of information about the torture program, creation of an historic and accurate historical record, criminal prosecution of the perpetrators, and recognition and compensation for the victims. Enforcing the law is not a political decision. In America, there aren't seasons when we enforce the law and other seasons when we ignore it. Slamming people against walls, placing them in stress positions for prolonged periods, pouring water over them, waterboarding them, beating them, hanging by their arms for days, loud noise played continually. These are the kinds of enhanced interrogation techniques that these outrageous memos we've been talking about seek to justify. In short, as one of the Bush administrators acknowledges, they seek to permit activities our own State Department routinely condemns as torture. We can't just ignore them and walk away. We must demonstrate our commitment to the rule of law and demand accountability if our country is to move forward. We live in a time when there are many things to be concerned about. Many lives are disrupted by economic and other stresses. For many Americans, the issue of torture appears to be one they don't have time or energy to contemplate. I commend each of you today for taking the time, having the energy, having the heart, having the responsibility, the moral spine to come here and take the time to look squarely in the face of what we have done. The founders of our democracy realized that without the rule of law, without checks and balances, without a bedrock commitment to fundamental values of human decency and equality extended to all, we will rapidly disintegrate into an authoritarian form of government in which governmental abuses become all too common. The bonds of trust and respect binding us to one another are readily destroyed. The rule of law in the United States matters because it has been predicated on our constitutional guarantees, our Bill of Rights, our civil liberties. Abandoning the rule of law, looking the other way when this brutalizing, inhumane acts of torture are condoned, impacts not only those individuals who are intimately connected with those acts as victims or torturers, not only those individuals, but indeed profoundly impacts with a destructiveness our democracy and indeed the soul of our country. So I urge each of us today to write, to demonstrate, talk to your neighbors, and work tirelessly to make sure those who broke the law by authorizing these heinous crimes are brought to justice. It's the only way to restore our values at home and our reputation abroad. Thank you for standing up here today on behalf of our Constitution and our fellow human beings. Thank you.